In this video, I'm going to explain component did mount in React. What is component did mount? For that, first I need to give what is a React lifecycle, a little reference. Life cycle of components. Each component. What is a life cycle of components? Components here means components in React. Each component in React has a life cycle which you can monitor and manipulate during its three main phases. So every component has a life cycle and it has three phases, that is mounting, updating, and unmounting. Every component has a life cycle which has phases, three important phases, three phases, that is mounting, updating, and unmounting. Now, out of this three phases, there is the first phase which is mounting. We are going to see only this one, not the other two as of now. So in mounting has four different methods. Mounting means putting elements into the DOM. If there is any new element added, so it is saying mounting means putting elements into the DOM. React has four built-in methods that gets called in this order. When mounting a component, whenever mounting is done of a component is done. So these are the four methods. So every component in React has a life cycle which has three phases: mounting, updating, and unmounting. Out of this, for mounting, it has four methods. Out of these four methods, one of them is component did mount, which which we have which we are going to see, but one by one. First, React has four built-in methods that gets called in this order when mounting a component. The render method is required and will always be called. The other methods are optional and will be called if that you define them. This is the important line, that means displaying whenever there is some change in any state or any prompt, any change on any website. So this is a website, this is a web page. If there is any change anywhere, so it will go to that component and it will check if there is any change in that state or if there is any change in that component. So if there is any change, it will completely re-render it, re-render it. That is display it again by calculating it again. So the value is recalculated, whether it is mathematical options or mathematical calculation or strings or anything. That is re-rendering. So this is this is a must. This is the render method is required and will always be called. The others are optional and will be called if you define them. So this is must. This will be called anyhow. But these constructor get derived straight from props, component did mount. These are optional. These will be called if you define them. Constructor. The constructor method is called before anything else when the component is initiated, and it is the natural place to set up the initial state and other initial values. So it is called at the initial state for initial functions and initial values. That is what it is written here. A constructor method is called before anything else when the component is initiated, and it is natural it is the natural place to set up the initial state of and another initial values. The constructor method is called with the props. The constructor method is called the props as arguments, and you should always start by calling super props before anything else. This will initiate the parent constructor method and allows the component to inherit method from its parent. That is a react dot component. The constructor method. So every time this will extend react dot component. Here it is seen in example. The constructor method is called by React every time you make a component. Every time you make a component, allows the component to inherit from its parent. Class header extends React dot component. So this is the component. This is a class, that is class header extends class header or component, and we are rendering it here. Means this dot state dot favorite color. Sorry, this component is called here. So here it is saying allows the component to inherit methods from its parent. So it extends a React component that is inherits from its extends its parent component. So here constructor is called constructor props, super props. This dot state is your favorite color is red. Here it is initialized. Here what it is written that any initial value that you have to initialize, that is can be done here. Set up the initial state or initial value. So initial state is written as red. So when I run this, so here header component is called, it will directly go here and then render this directly, but it will see okay, this dot c dot favorite color is here, and it is passed as props. So initial state value of favorite color is red, so that will show red here. Now next is a get a derived state from props. This is if we want to change the value of a color red, that is when we use get derived state from props. The get derived state from props methods is called right before rendering the elements in the DOM. Rendering is the most important method because that is after rendering it will display the UI on the web page. So it is saying that before the rendering step, this is the step that is going to get executed. The get derived state from props method is called right before the rendering the elements in the DOM. This is the natural place to set the state object based on the initial props. This is the natural place to set the state. Here we can set the value of state. If there is any initial value, let us say red, we can change it also. It takes state as an argument and returns an object with changes to the state. It takes, here it is written that it takes states as an argument and returns object with changes to the state, so it will change the value of the state. The example below starts with the favorite color being red, but get derived state from props method updates the favorite color based on the favcall attribute. So here it is written class header, that is a component which is called here, and here we have said favcall value is equal to favorite color value is equal to, that is favcall yellow, but here in constructor it is initialized to red. So when it goes here, that is state, this will execute first, then it will go to the render. So renders, and render is the most important step which is going to get executed anyhow, it is necessary. So before this method is saying that get derived state gets executed just before render. So just before render, here it is saying that set the value of favorite color to props.favcall, that is props.favcall is yellow, so red becomes yellow here, and that value is changed, and that is called here that this dot state dot favorite color, so it will show yellow instead of red. My favorite color is yellow here, even though in constructor it is red. That is the importance of get derived state. Now coming render, a render method is required and is the method that actually outputs the HTML to DOM, the final step where all the HTML is calculated and uh, then shown to the H H- the render method is required, and the method is actually out method that actually outputs HTML to the DOM. It gives is the complete HTML what should be displayed on the UI, that is on the browser web page. A simple component in a simple component with a simple render method, that is, this is the simplest way. Here it is calling header component, and then header component is here which extends react.component. This is the parent element. Then render method directly it will show this is the content of the header component. If I run this directly, this is the direct HTML, so h1, I cannot run this because it needs a React own server. If I give p tag, it will show the in p tag in h1. So it is rendering the complete HTML. The render method is required and is the method that actually outputs the HTML to the DOM. Now component did mount. That is what this was the main topic. So for explaining this, I explained these about three, so that we can get the clear idea about it. The component did mount method is called after the component is rendered. So now rendering is done. After that, component did mount method is called. Okay. This is where you run statements that requires that the component is already placed in DOM. This is where you run statements that requires that where you run statements that requires that the component is already placed in the DOM. At at first, my favorite color is red, but give me a second, Jen, and yellow is and it is yellow instead. Component did mount, component did mount. This is where you run statements that require the component is already placed in the DOM. So first constructor will run and then render, and component did mount will run after that. So favorite color is red, so it will show red, but after 1 second it will show yellow. Red and then yellow. Yes, because constructor has initialized its value favorite color to red. Okay, so it will show red, but component did mount. It is saying once it is mounted, and then run this. That is similar to we can say equivalent to use effect. It is just like that, where we can run the side effects. Here it is saying at first my color is red, but give me a second and it is yellow instead. That is what is shown here. First it was showing red and then yellow. Now then there are further steps, but uh, the important part was this component did mount. So I have written some short notes about it. Component did mount. Explain component did mount lifecycle in React. Component did mount is a lifecycle method in React class component that runs once immediately after the component is mounted. So after mounting, lifecycle method class component that runs once the mounting is done, it will run in the DOM. It is mainly used for side effects like fetching data from APS, setting up subscriptions, timers, or interacting with the DOM. It does not. It is saying that it is mainly used for side effects, so we can use similar to use effect hook. It does not run on state or props updates. For updates we use component did mount. It does not run on state or prop updates. For updates we use component did update. So component did update is different and component did mount is different. Cleanup task will remove listeners are handled in component will mount. This is also different. Class my component extends react.component. This is the parent. Component did mount. It is saying this console.log component mounted, and then fetching the data. For fetching the data, we write this fetch in bracket the link where we want to fetch the data from, and then convert the data into response.json, and then show the data in the form of console.log data. This is written here, and then render hello world. So when rendering will be done, after that mounting will be done. And mounting will be done, this will run as a side effect. What will run as a side effect? It will show console.log. In console, it will show component is mounted after mounting. And it will fetch this and it will show the data in the form of console. So in console tab, we will see the data after the mounting. That is the importance of component did mount. But here it is saying that the equivalent code of this is this: functional component equivalent function my component. So here this is not required written. Use effect, that is function arrow function console.log mounted, and then fetch the data. Again the same thing, that is the link, that is the API for fetching the data. Then a response in JSON form, and data, show the data in console.log, and then dependency. This and these are same. This is doing the same work as this. That is what is written here. Key points to remember: runs once after mounting. It runs after mounting, that is the important point. Runs for use for side effects, API calls, DOM interactions, timers. These are the examples. Does not run on updates. For updates we have different, that is um, for updates we have component did update. Does not run on updates. Functional component equivalent is use effect. So that is the complete explanation of component did mount. So component did mount is complete in this video.